This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Empowerment and More with Michael Gershe. And Michael, it's so good to have you back. The last two times we sort of made a little fun of you because first we had your friend Greg on, and Greg told us some private stories, I think, about you. And then the following month, last month, we roasted you for your 50th birthday.
Yes, you guys did, and quite well, and I thank you very much.
Well, you kept reminding us that you were going to be turning 50, so we knew we had to do something to lighten the load. And I
Right.
know it was fun for all of us, and you got a lot of hits on it. So I don't know if all your friends just like, seeing you roasted or what, but
I don't,
you know, we're glad that you made it to 50. So,
Thank you. Me too.
yeah, so last month in July, you got back on the road again.
I did. Yeah, relatively speaking, I did a couple of programs for MAD. I went back to the Stow Court right around my birthday. Actually, I was back in the Stow Court the day before I turned 50. And, yeah, it's been pretty good. Comedy-wise, I was back in June and then back doing the programs again. I think I've done four, maybe, 4 or 5 programs since last time.
Okay. So, how is it any different now because of COVID, being in the courtroom and wearing a mask and trying to be socially distant?
Well, it's completely different. Well, they have to wear a mask. I'm far enough away from them where I can stand and take my mask off.
Okay.
Um, because A, I have asthma, so there's no way I'm going to be able to wear a mask and talk for an hour and a half. I'll be passed out on the floor
Yeah.
within the first 10, 15 minutes, and then no one's going to come and rescue me anyway. So, so there's that. But I think as a speaker, as a comedian, that's terrific that I don't have to wear the mask because, and this as well, there's so much of that facial communication, that nonverbal communication is huge for them to see me, but also I miss that part of not seeing their facial expressions. I can only
Exactly.
see their eyes. And even though the eyes could tell you a lot, as a comedian, you don't know if they're smiling. You can hear the laughter, but you still want to see all their entire face.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that part's hard to judge with in terms of how you're doing with that. But when I get into talking about the car crash and my injuries and surviving and the grief part and about John, you can see their eyes. I mean, you can see their eyes water up. You can see their eyes focus, on you as well. So that part's been a bit interesting, and I've been really paying attention to their eyes a lot. But I am very glad that they can see my entire face. They might not be glad they can see my entire face, but as a speaker, to get those words out too, because sometimes you might lower your inflection for a certain point
Sure.
or whatever, and I think that mask really hinders that. So on that part, I'm glad I don't have to wear one, and unfortunately,
Exactly.
they do. So you miss some of that communication. So it's almost like you have to try twice as hard to get that message out. You have to be
Well,
a little bit more animated and whatnot.
and I can imagine that. I mean, we've been doing most of our podcasts now on YouTube. And I find it easier on YouTube because I can watch and see what people are saying, not so much the words, but by watching their expressions. And, that is a good cue for me. Um, and we've had people who have listened to the YouTube podcasts have said the same thing that, number one, they can put a face with the words, but they can see, how true that person is by looking at their face. And I think that's, what the people are experiencing in the courtroom with you, that they get to see your story is really real because it's written all over you. So, for the last, couple months, we're sort of getting back to normal. Um, I know that you're still working from home. Is that correct?
I am. I went to campus today for a half a day. I'm trying to limit my exposure, only because my doctor goes, you're in that high risk area with,
Sure.
your asthma and the allergies, and it's all part of it. So, maybe a couple of times a week, but very like Monday morning, and I'll go in Friday morning too. So that's what I'm really trying to limit myself, um, to being around people.
Absolutely. So, how does it sort of hinder what's going on in the courtroom? Because, yes, you're giving your presentation, but in the past, after the presentation, wasn't there a lot of talk amongst individuals? How do they do that now?
Yeah, that is tough. Now they just directly leave, unless they want to buy a book, and then I will sign the book and I'll put it like somewhere else, and then they will take the book like from where that location is. So
Sure.
there's still that distance around, but it's not as personal as
Right.
it used to be, or personable, I guess, where you would have, say, like a mini meet and greet, like after a program, and where they could come up to you, and you're a lot closer. And when Christine Monchek talks, sometimes she would get a hug from people, and there's none of that anymore. So we do miss that spirit of it afterwards, where they would come up and talk with you more on a one-to-one basis. So unfortunately, we don't have that connection afterwards. They might still talk to us, but not, but from a distance. So we understand that
Right.
too. And it's,
Absolutely.
and it's still good to hear their stories afterwards. That's awesome that they've been 6 months sober, or whatever it is. And, so we still have that connection. And I think that speaks volumes to, especially at the Stow Court, in terms of what I and Christine Monchek do in terms of our program, that they're still willing to hang out with us a little bit afterwards and still share and still talk.
Well,
So that's kind of nice.
and that probably is a real key motivator for the individuals because, you know, you need somebody to recognize that you are sober, that you are making the changes, that they heard your story and they don't want to be part of a story like that in the future. It for me, I am a huggy, touchy person, and I've avoided going to different events such as what you do at the courthouse because my first intention would be to come up and give you a hug afterwards. And I know that's not possible.
Right.
Um, do you find that there are some people that, attempt to get close because they sort of need it at this point?
No, not yet. I think everyone has been really good in terms of the social distancing. So we haven't had that happen yet, in terms of someone who needed that, and then to break that kind of barrier. I
Yeah.
think we're all respectful of what's going on, more than anything else, and that part's kind of nice. And I think that speaks volumes of people wanting to, stay healthy,
Yep.
more than anything
Absolutely.
else, and stay within those limits. And then of course there's signs up in the courtroom, and at the Stowe Court, they have done an awesome job in terms of spreading out the chairs in the courtroom, because we had 15 people the last time I was there, in August, 15, 16 people, and usually you say, sit in the first two rows where they
Right.
can sit, shoulder to shoulder, and they didn't do that this time around, but yet, so they're spread out, and you just kind of roll with it, go, you know what, and as a performer, you kind of go, these are our circumstances we have to deal with,
Exactly.
and you can't let that get to you. You go, okay, the first 10 minutes or so is comedy. They may not be close together, but they are spread out,
Yeah.
and it still worked just fine. And I'm finally hitting my stride again, getting back into the motion of the programs and the comedy, and the timing of it, because it definitely has been rusty.
Yep. Well, and for a lot of us who really haven't been out much, since March, um, I have to pick and choose where I decide to go. I have an immune system that just picks up everything. So
Sure.
I'm overly compromised to a point, and um, that's what makes it difficult for me. I went to something this past weekend, and somebody who I haven't seen in almost 2 years. And the two of us started approaching each other, and then we stopped dead in our tracks because it was like, we're not allowed to touch.
Right.
And so, I just wondered how that was going. But luckily, you know, there is enough signage and people are being respectful. And that's extremely important at this time. Have you noticed a difference in the amount of DUIs now that COVID has hit, that fewer people are on the freeways and on the streets?
It's much lower than it was in years past. And I'll give you an example. Let me pull it up really quick in terms of what Ohio's been like. The numbers it's incredible to see. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people still getting hit and whatnot. Just yesterday in Summit County, there was a 3-car crash, and the drunk driver, he blew a .203. So he was 3 times over the limit. So to give you an idea, from so last time I was at Stow, which was just a couple of weeks ago, in Ohio, 2019, from January 1st to August 16th, there's 14,625 DUIs that were arrested by the Ohio State Highway Patrolman.
Wow.
So that's 14,625 last year. This year, in the same time frame, 9,808. So that gives you an indication,
Sure.
and because I don't think that's due to less patrols. I think it's due to less people on the roads. And to give you an indication in terms of Summit County, last year at the same point in time, there were 543 arrests for OVIs. This year, the same time frame, 262 in Summit County.
Interesting.
And again, that's just by the troopers. They could be, the numbers could be a little bit higher because of local authorities, but those aren't registered on the Ohio State Highway Patrol's website for their statistics. And so far this year in Summit County, 9 out of the 24 fatalities on the roads were caused by an impaired driver.
Wow. And as we've talked about, being impaired can be anything from, alcohol, drugs, illness, being distracted.
Right. These are more impairment for the troopers, either drunk or drugs that are involved.
So, when you're talking to a group of people who have, have a DUI, 1, 2, I don't know how many they can have before they finally are sent away for a while, but when you're talking to them, do you really get that sense that on top of wanting to be sober, they really want to make changes in their life so that they can live a healthy life?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I do. And it's interesting because at the start of the program, you can read their body language and maybe not so much. But I think when we're done and they hear everything that we put in front of them and the way it's presented, I think in that hour and a half, they really do want to make that change. And because it's a monetary fine, so a lot of people don't have the $8,000 to $10,000 for a DUI or whatever it is. So they don't want to get another one. That's for sure. But I think they really get the message and realize how precious their life really is. So it's not only the monetary cost of a DUI, it's their lives. It's someone else's life. Their life could be like Big John,
right,
who could, that could have been his first DUI and he died. So I think they understand how precious their life really is and how they don't want to cause harm to their family, as in, dying or getting hurt or hurting someone else or bringing that pain onto someone else. And I think that's where that difference is. They kind of understand that their choices, their decisions impact so many more people than just themselves.
So occasionally we read about somebody who has a handful of DUIs, okay? And, the next one happens to be a fatal crash. And the public will turn around and say, well, how was this person still driving if they had numerous DUIs? Are they driving illegally at that point, or do they get their license back after a certain amount of time? What's the situation there?
It could be a combination of both. For instance, the person that caused our car crash was driving on a suspended license for 3 years. So his license was suspended in 1967, and come 1970, he's still driving.
Got it.
So so the repeat offenders, it is a combination of those things where they shouldn't be driving. Someone gave them the keys, or maybe depending on what they had previously, they got their driving rights back. So it's probably a number of different reasons in terms of why they're back behind the wheel of the car.
Because that's always stuns me when I hear a story like that, and it's like, well, they weren't supposed to be driving.
Right.
And I know it's hard sometimes to control because there are family members who sometimes will turn a blind eye and say, sure, run to the grocery store for me, or take my kid to school. Right. Can they then be liable if they loan their car to that person?
I think they can be. That's a good law question. Okay. But I'm trying to remember what happened to someone a while ago in Ohio. The guy was a repeat offender, and he killed 2 students at Hiram. And I think the person that let him drive was also charged. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, I think I remember seeing that. But they could be, because they know that They shouldn't be driving, and they go ahead and drive. You should be held somewhat responsible.
And I would think you would be, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, at least to let people think about it, before you turn that blind eye. And I've seen it happen. I know when my son was in high school, and of course, underage, he was not drinking, but he was coming home from a football game, and there was a bottle in the car. And after they dropped him off, they were in an accident. So, my son really lucked out. But the parents knew what was going on. And, that's when I say we can't turn a blind eye. We have to be aware of who's driving our cars, why they're driving them, and if they legally can. So I hope that message gets out. So you went back to comedy in June, you said, right?
June was my first time back on stage at the comedy club, yeah.
So that was probably like their first opening, or maybe their second weekend opening. What was the audience like?
Thin. We had I think it was like the second or third weekend back, and I haven't been back up. I've been back up once. We had shows of 12 people, 15, and 8. We had to cancel the first show on a Saturday because we didn't have anyone there. And I don't think in June people were ready to come out.
Sure.
I think people were still uneasy. And I think now people are starting to come out a little bit more. And Pete's done an awesome job at the Funny Stop with the social distancing and everything, and the mask. And so I'm really happy about that. But I will tell you this, the audience size didn't make a difference because the crowd of 8 was like our best audience of the weekend.
Interesting.
They came to be entertained. And I think that's where a lot of people come, get mistaken. Or maybe some of the new comedians who always want a sold-out room. You can't blame the people that aren't there. Actually, you can't blame the people that are there. They showed up to be entertained.
Sure.
So and we have to do our job. And those 8 people wanted to laugh, and we put on a fantastic show for them. And it makes you feel needed again, in a way, going, oh, good. My skills as a comedian didn't go to waste because people needed a laugh, especially in June and even now. So I hope people are getting more comfortable with going out, and just being cautious. But there's no need why, unless you're like myself or like you have those, health reasons that, the social distance or be extra careful. But even when I am out, I'll wear the mask. when I'm back, when I'm off stage, I'll put it back on. I will social distance,
Right.
but yeah. So it was nice and to be entertaining again and again. The rust had to come off, but man, it felt good when you're on stage and you hold that microphone and you get that first joke out and people laugh. And I think comedians need that just as much as the audience.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's important that we all start getting out again. Again, like you said, you do want to wear the mask. You do want to socially distant. You don't want to be like me and want to be so eager to hug the next person. You have to keep that sign in your head that says hands off. But you can still have a good time. And
Sure.
everything that we've been going through, and we don't know how much longer this is going to last. We may be socially distancing for, another 6 months or a year, but it doesn't mean that we have to hide in our home. And like I said, I've been careful where I go out to. And usually I'll call ahead and tell them if I'm going someplace, this is my health issue. Do you think I will be okay at your restaurant or wherever it is? And I've had a couple restaurants tell me that they would prefer that I don't come because they don't want me to accidentally catch anything while I'm there. And I appreciate that. I'm willing to give them my money, but if they don't think I'm going to be safe there, I'm not going. But I certainly need to laugh. And I'm so glad that you're getting back on stage doing that. Do you have another plan to be at the Funny Stop soon?
I don't. It probably won't be until Basil comes back in November. I was talking to him the other day. In fact, as we're talking, he just left me a voicemail. So maybe I'll secure a date with him. But it'd probably be then because we're going to be in September now.
Yep.
Probably November with Basil is when I'll be back at the Funny Stop. And I have one this week, I think, or next week at the. Hold on, let me look that up on my calendar. I have the Northeast Yacht Club on the 18th of September. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Well, again, we all need to relax a little bit, laugh a little bit, and we have to make sure that you guys don't get rusty because,
right.
you're our entertainment, and we definitely need it. So next month, you said we're going to try to do something a little bit different. You're going to have a guest on. So I'm just giving a heads up to our listeners that, we're going to be bringing some other people on with Michael as we go further into this year. And again, I really would love to get your brother on with you. I think he could tell us some stories. But more important than that, we're not really going to roast you.
We already had a roast. We already had the roast.
No, but this isn't about roasting you. But it's really talking about some of the things that are in the book, your swimming days and how he's a swimming coach. Reading the book, I would have assumed that you'd be the swimming coach, to be honest.
I did during grad school. That was the one time, and then I thought I was going to be a swimming coach as well, but those hours interfered with comedy.
Oh,
and cause you had swim meets, you had afternoon practices, and I didn't want to do it because of the hours that I had.
Okay.
So, but yeah, he's awesome. My brother he has a great swim school in Davie, Florida, where he teaches kids how to swim. And he was thrilled when he started his lessons back up. And his other swim coaches there are wearing they wear the mask and the shield in the pools, and they're teaching toddlers and infants, how to swim, and they're giving them life lessons of how not to drown and becoming swimmers. So it's pretty awesome. I will talk with him and see what I could do,
because I think that could be an interesting show. I remember I took my oldest son to swimming lessons, and he hated it. We couldn't get him to do anything. And then one day we were at a pool. He was 2 years old, and he said, "Watch this." And he ran so fast to the diving board. and ran on the diving board, jumped in, and dog paddled on his own to the side. I mean, a bunch of people jumped into the pool to help him, but here he dog paddled.
Right.
So, scared me. Was like, you never wanted to take swimming lessons. You cried as an infant, and look at you now. So, I think it's important that we give our kids swimming lessons. And so I'd love to learn
definitely.
more. Absolutely. Well, I want to wish you the best with the school year starting, and, your combination of working from home and on campus. And, hopefully you have a couple more court dates coming up and helping some other people. And we will just continue podcasting with you.
That sounds like a great idea. I enjoy these podcasts, and I hope people listening get something out of it too. And I think we'll have some guests that we help, empower people. And like you, we've met a lot of people who have some really incredible stories.
Right.
So I want to bring them on so they can share their stories in a different medium and get, to have the ability to inspire other people. And I think that's important too, because we all have powerful stories, and these people, I think, inspire me on a daily basis, and I just want to give them the opportunity to share.
And if any of our listeners want to share with Michael, you can contact us here at New Cleveland Radio at gmail.com. If you have a story, we will share it with Michael, and maybe you can be a guest with him as well. Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, have a great day, and don't get too tired with your action figures, okay?
No, I won't.
Have a good one.
I promise.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.